Hey everybody, Nathan Rich again, coming to you from Shanghai, China. Behind me you'll see a beautiful statue of some kind of torso with a huge butt running on a wheel or something. Today I wanted to talk to you about an interesting conversation I had with an Italian. Last night I went to a beer festival here in Shanghai, which had a lot of people drinking beer. And although beer is not my favorite, I did have a few. And there I met an Italian man. And as I'm wont to do, sometimes I like to ask people from other countries what their opinions are about politics and China. Now, normally people who don't study politics and current events will have somewhat of a dumb take on things, which is understandable. That's normal. It's just like my take on art, for example. But it is interesting still to find out what it is that they believe, because that tells you a little bit about the impact of the media that they're exposed to. So this particular guy was not, very interested in politics or current events by any means, but his answer was kind of interesting. He said, well, the COVID lockdown and the COVID this and the COVID that, it's all about the government trying to use that as an excuse. And I said, excuse? Wait, so the Chinese government is locking people down and have this tight grip on COVID, and they're making a scan and all these tough controls on it. What is this excuse about? What is their goal? And he said, well, they want more control. And I said, oh my gosh, control? Why? And he said, well, you'd have to ask them. And I told him, if your theory ends with, well, I don't know, or you'd have to ask them, it's probably not very well thought out. And this is a common theme I see with not just the Chinese government, also the American government, which, I pay attention to as well. There's a lot of these conspiracy theories that end up with going, well, I don't know, I guess they just want more power or more control or more money. It's just a sort of vague motive. This is not just about that guy. A lot of people will have this this kind of concept going on, but it's for me to understand what people think about the situation. So I proposed to him an alternative. I said, well, maybe that's true. Maybe the government is using COVID as an excuse to control people because they want more control. Let's put that to the side. Maybe that's true. There are some weird aspects of that, however, like some questions I might have. For example, before COVID, if you look at all the reports about China, it's all about how the government has so much control over everybody and how the high-tech Huawei and everything else is being used to control everybody's movement, and everybody's totally locked down. It's a big, huge prison here. So it kind of begs the question, well, why did they need to have this enormous, hundreds of thousands of people involved conspiracy theory to pretend like they care about a virus, to chase it all around China just to get more control for an unknown, unspecified reason? But let's just put that aside. Okay, there's some really weird questions about that. Let's put it aside. I have an alternative suggestion. Maybe, could it be possible that the reason that the government cares so much about COVID and is cracking down and is making us scan to get into buildings and all this kind of stuff, could it be that the government rallied the people behind a cause, and the cause was avoiding COVID and eliminating COVID from within its borders? And the people made huge sacrifices and gave huge concessions to achieve that goal. And it's been a couple of years, and it's been a trying and disturbing experience for everybody involved. And now they're in a situation of, well, we can't just put everybody through that and then one day go, oh, never mind. Remember all that COVID stuff that we all went through and how nobody has it? Yeah, well, just never mind. I guess we're all going to get it now. So isn't it possible that the government is trying to find a way to ease out of this while still allowing everyone to get a victory? Isn't that a possibility? Because the thing is, the only people who can ever hold to account the Chinese government are the Chinese people. No one else is going to do it. It's only China that can control China. And so I kind of posed this like, isn't that possible as well? And he definitely thought about it. Because the thing is, when we live in a place like Shanghai, where there's a lot of foreigners and, the foreigners here especially, they stay in these bubbles. I don't think anybody really challenges these types of opinions. So when I come along and go, yeah, I mean, this really weird conspiracy theory may be the default, but is it actually correct? Is that actually right? Because to me, it seems very simplistic and dismissive, really, of the agency of Chinese humans. I mean, how about we just assume that everybody here is basically good, and they're basically trying to do their job, and they're basically trying to make a better China first. Let's start with that basic assumption, and then let's prove one way or the other this or that. And I think when you approach China in that way, things make a lot more sense than everybody's hiding in a room trying to figure out how to get more control. And so hundreds of thousands or millions of doctors and medical staff across the country are doing all this conspiratorial stuff. It's just very weird. So again, this is not a slam on that guy. This is a very typical type of narrative that I hear from Westerners, especially those who don't study politics or think about the current events very much. But these are the types of conversations that I really wish Chinese people who hang out with foreigners would engage in with these foreigners. Like, instead of just hearing what they say about China and going, wow, you're right. Yeah, the government just wants more control for some reason, unknown reason to me. Maybe push back a little bit. Challenge them a little bit. Doesn't mean you have to disagree with them, but just see what they say. Say, oh, could it be this other thing? Is that possible? And I think by the answer that you get from them, you can tell if they're just biased or if they're actually open to discussion. This guy was open to discussion, so, you know, progress on one side at least. Anyway, just a random discussion I had with an Italian. So next time you meet an Italian and he says something weird about China, you question him. Anyway, till next time, thanks everybody. 谢谢.